My name is Rolf Trönler and I welcome you to another deep dive, ChangeCockpit deep dive about MFA and phishing resistance. Today is about, as mentioned, phishing resistance and MFA. So first of all, why? Why do we need this? What is it about the current state of threat out in the world according to Microsoft? Then passkeys, topic of passkeys, MFA options and strengths. To help us regarding keep up the security, temporary access pass, a quick topic, other MFA related settings we could do inside Entra ID. Then monitoring and management of MFA options and MFA settings. And last but not least, it wouldn't be a ChangeCockpit deep dive without a quick roadmap. First of all, the first thing of the why. I've seen these numbers 2 weeks ago during Ignite, and this were presented by a presenter from the Insight company, and I thought, yeah, it's quite impressive. So obviously it's about money. So first of all, we have three different breaches. For the one is gaming and hospitality in summer 2023, and they were targeted by some threat actor, some social engineering attack by one group that attacked another gaming and hospitality organization. So they had $100 million loss on adjusted property earnings and more than 10 millions in one-time expenses after this breach. They had a 10-day computer shutdown, meaning they were 10 days offline, and stock shares fell by more than 6% after this incident happened. So the second one is the chemical manufacturer was also breached in summer 2023. They had $350 million US dollars decline in net sales, and over 1 month from the time of reporting to the time of containment. So that it took them over 1 month to get back to order in regarding IT and business, and their share and stock fell also by 6% after this incident. And then the third one was a bigger one, a big digital data provider back in spring 2023, and they had over 60 million individuals who had been impacted by this breach, and 9.9 billions in estimated costs based on analyst data. They didn't conclude this, and the largest victim were 11 million individuals from a US government. So these are just some three very big examples. There are many other examples to find out if you search for it in the internet. So that's just the why we have to protect our resources if it wasn't that obvious till now, and some financial aspects after some breaches. Then another big why are the motivations. We have the threat actors. The Microsoft groups the threat actors into nation state actors, influence operations, financially motivated operations. The four threat actors, Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran, have different groups which are assigned to them. Normally, Microsoft calls a group some number or some name and number until they are sure where they are from, and then they assign another name to this group. So for one particular famous, if you would say so, is for sure the Midnight Blizzard, or at least to me. So that's the one from Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran. And what I want to show here especially are the key to motivations mapping. Microsoft maps motivations of such threat actors to or maps motivations to such a threat actor. So the motivations are, I think these are quite a good example to see them in general about motivations about threat actors and why are they doing what they are doing. So first of all, we have the cryptocurrency theft. They want just to steal some cryptocurrencies. These are mainly seen from North Korea. I've seen on the map on this slide. Then cybercrime services, data destruction, just destroy your data, or data theft for profit. So they get some ransom out from you. If you won't pay, then they would sell, or they would make your data, your perhaps secret data public. Disruption of your services, some election influence, quite important in the current times, is espionage, influence operations, and I think one of the most known, especially from the public media, at least here in Switzerland, are ransomware and extortion groups. So that are the motivations why we are targeted, or why all companies are targeted by threat actors. Then we also have the nation state threat actor targeting, and what are the most targeted countries by threat actor or by continent. First, we see the North America and Latin and Caribbean. Obviously, it's the United States that are more targeted in here than more than 600 million. Then we have from the Middle East and North Africa, it's the most targeted is Israel. From Europe, it's Ukraine, which makes perfect sense with the war going on there. But just I marked here also Switzerland for our Swiss customers, and because I'm based from Switzerland, and we see here also Switzerland is, it's not on the most left side, but it's still in here, and we aren't that big, so it's quite a threat to us as well. Then we see from South Asia, East Asia, and Pacific, most targeted is Taiwan. If I would make a guess, I would say it's from China, but that's only a guess from my side. And Sub-Saharan Africa is just the country of South Africa. So after seeing this, what is Microsoft exactly doing, or what are they doing to help us? So we are still targeted, but so they aren't successful in targeting our company. So first of all, Microsoft processes 78 trillion. I've written it here with all zeros. Security signals per day. So they are analyzing 78 trillions. It's up of 13 millions back from 2023 report from Microsoft. So it's quite some signals. Then they have 34,000 full-time dedicated security engineers working for Microsoft, meaning working for Microsoft's cloud to also help protect us, because they are protecting Microsoft's cloud. And Microsoft tracks currently around 1,500 unique threat actors, including 600 nation state, 300 cybercrime groups, and 200 influence operation groups. Some of them we have seen in the slide before by region and by motivation. So if they are coming through, and if they could breach your company, the typical behavior currently, that's also I think very interesting to know. First thing they do, if they compromise an account, they do some inbox rule manipulation to redirect emails based on keywords to less monitored folders, like your junk email folders or conversation histories. I've seen them often to synchronization errors, redirected all your emails. So after we've seen a certain account being breached, normally we reset the password and we reset or we revoke all session cookies first. And the next thing I would do, or I'm doing normally, is I check the inbox rules before anything else, because that's very, very often there are some inbox rules in your mailbox being created. Then they do business email compromise, lateral phishing, or fake invoicing. Lateral phishing, so they're sending out more fish from this breached account, because this breached account is a trusted source of email for all colleagues in your company. It's coming from internal, so they are sending internal emails which look more serious for more phishing, or they do fake invoicing. So they send out fake invoices, or they just inject into some threat. So let's say what we've seen, some sales sends out an invoice, and now the threat actors breaches the account of this particular sales. Afterwards, I see, oh, this invoice was sent out. They create their own invoice, which matches to the order or to the old invoice, and resend this email and tell the new victim, hey, we updated our account numbers. Please use this account number now for your payment. And they hope that that they get the money to them using this fake account number, using this fake invoice. But it's based on an already existing conversation, so it looks quite serious to them, or to the receiver, and the receiver could believe, oh yes, and now I have to pay not to a Swiss bank account, I have to pay to just another country bank account. Makes perfect sense. So let's do this $20,000 payment to them. So that this is one of an example. Another one is the conversation hijacking. That's not they do not insert like I meant with the lateral phishing and inbox rule manipulation. It's just they use the same display name from the sender, taken out an old email, and then follow up on this conversation, but from a new external email address. The email address itself is wrong, but the display name is the same. So if the recipient doesn't check the email address every time, only the display name, and replies to it, then the conversation would go on now between the faked email address and the valid recipient. So that's the inject, the conversation hijacking, injecting into an existing email thread using the same display name. And they sometimes or often do also MFA tampering, meaning when they breach your account, they just go into your MFA settings, add an additional MFA factor just in case you now decide to enable MFA after the breach. They can still get in if you didn't change the password. Here are also some in percentage. We see 40% of breaches have inbox rule manipulation, 25 lateral phishing, conversation hijacking, also 25, and MFA tampering. Only 10% after breach are doing. So a little bit more why or what's on the rise. Microsoft reports that QR code phishing is on the rise quite much, meaning you get an email which has a QR code in it. So they hope you scan it, and this QR code leads you to a phishing website where you should enter your username and passwords. It's more trusted since the pandemic because we are used to QR codes, to use them. And it's quite hard to detect them in mail flow because you have a graphic in there and you don't know the full target or the true target behind this QR code. And if they are doing a short URL, then they could even change the target when they want to. And this QR codes, as just mentioned, obscures the destination from the user. But Defender for Office 365 image detection caused now a decrease of 94% in QR code phishing emails, because Microsoft found a way to properly detect this with the Defender for Office 365. But top email phish types in this graphic, first is the traditional phish URL and link for 56% of emails, phishing emails, QR code phishing 25, and phishing attachments. So let's say you have a Word attachment, and if you open this Word, there's a link in this Word leading to a OneNote site, there's another link in it, and there's the attachment in there, which leads you then to the final phishing, normally website. Another graphic about the daily malicious traffic volume. We see here in millions. Text scam is also on the rise, malware and phish. Text scam emails are emails or is traffic regarding it's telling you, hey, your computer is infected, please download this software to clean it. And or someone calls you in, hey, your computer is infected, we need to do a remote control session, and by the way, I'm working for Microsoft. That's another possibility of tech scam. So basically, then Microsoft sees in Entra ID currently 600 million identity attacks per day. This also translates into 7,000 password attacks per second. Yes, if you do the math, it's 604,800,000 with the 7,000 password attacks per second. Then 99% of the attacks in Enter ID on identities are password attacks, so trying to find out the password. Then we have 111% increase in token replay attacks. So they somehow steal your token, your sign-in session token, and replay this token to sign themselves in. And 146% rise in adversary in the middle, AITM phishing attacks. That's what I meant when they successfully breach an account, they send another phishing email out. That's one example of adversary in the middle attack. From identity attacks, the perspective from this, as mentioned, more than 99% of identity attacks are password attacks. It means breach replay, password spraying, and phishing attacks, and only less than 1% of identity attacks count against MFA attacks like SIM swapping, MFA fatigue, and adversary in the middle. Post authentication, also some small numbers about token theft, consent phishing. Consent phishing is also, I think that's my personal opinion, consent phishing is also on the rise. So they try to trick you to consent to a malicious app, and this malicious app gets an OAuth consent screen to read your emails or to have full access on your mailbox, as an example. So if you didn't restrict the options for users to consent to all apps, then they by default in Enter ID they can consent to all apps and therefore are prone to consent phishing and then infrastructure compromise at the end. Then we also see, Microsoft reports also how easy it is to carry out different types of social engineering attacks. So the attack vectors, easy is email and Teams phishing. As mentioned also in ChangeCockpit, that there are rolling out currently new features regarding Teams chat phishing. So for example, trial tenants cannot send to licensed tenants any Teams chat messages anymore by default. This is one example. Then the QR code phishing is also quite easy. Medium difficulty is phone and video calls. They really try to call you and trick you into a help desk call like help desk social engineering. And very hard is SIM swapping. So they swap out your SIM so they get access to your SMS tokens if you still use SMS. Another quite interesting graphics I've seen at Ignite is this MFA adoption graphics, or it's from the current state of report from Microsoft. Back in 2014, 0.7% of all Entra ID or Microsoft 365 cloud users had MFA adopted. Then it's up to 1.8% back in 2018 when MFA was available cost-free to all enterprise customers. Then in 2020, MFA was automatically deployed to all new tenants using security defaults. That was only for new tenants, but at least since then, 25% of all users are using MFA. So that was quite a big step. Normally you think, security defaults, have to turn it off, basic auth doesn't work anymore or whatever. You also have to turn it off if you want to turn on conditional access. And it's on by default, but only for new tenants. So basically, many tenants are older than 2020. And then 2022, MFA was automatically deployed to all enterprise tenants via security defaults, although rise to up to 37% of users using MFA. Then Microsoft announced Microsoft managed conditional access policies. That was also a very heavy discussion in ChangeCockpit, because if you didn't do anything, they enabled these policies, which should be fine, but at least when these Microsoft managed policies, there was another rise of up 4% using, or increase of 4% of people using MFA, but still we are only at 41% of Enter ID accounts using MFA for login in 2024. So still less than 50%, but the target of Microsoft is 100%. Then another topic is AI, which is on the rise regarding phishing or regarding attacks. Generative AI landscape, like generating malware, automating vulnerability discovery, so they don't have to do it by themselves. They are using AI bots for this. Customizing exploits, so changing code. Cracking passwords using AI, phishing and social engineering, a big one. So the phishing emails are now in the proper language, especially for German. German is, I think, quite hard to write, and you've seen, oh, that must be a phishing email because this German is so bad. Not anymore. They just use, for example, ChatGPT to write quite proper text. Disguising malicious code, command and control communication, and deepfaking data, emails, and voice. So if they call you using perhaps using a known to you voice, using a deepfake, then they could use or trick you into a social engineering attack. So the big question here regarding phishing is, can you train humans not to click on a perfect and AI generated phishing emails? I think no, because it's so perfect, it will be so hard to detect. So the answer to this is we need phishing proof authentication methods. Speaking about phishing proof authentication methods, I think that's the one of the main topics of this deep dive. We have several strengths or strong authentication methods. The poor ones are the password only, but as we have seen back here, only this graphic would mean that 59% are still using poor password-only authentication. So the current tactics still get results from the attackers because so many people still don't use MFA. Then let's say at least use MFA, even if it's only fair, but better and better and the best regarding strongness. So the fair authentication methods are SMS and voice message. It's now, or you should now thread SMS tokens as insecure today. Then better would be password and authenticator push notification. By default, number matching is enabled. Software tokens, one-time password. So the rolling code from tokens, software tokens like Authenticator, like Google Authenticator. You could do software tokens with Microsoft Enter ID accounts, or then use hardware tokens, rolling codes. And also better is passwordless, using passwordless authenticator phone sign in. So when you're using passwordless authentication methods, you have nothing to enter or to type in on a phishing website, or at least your users should now get it. Hey, why do I have to enter my password? I'm using passwordless authentication for Enter ID. So latest at this point, they should detect that this probably is a phishing attack. And then the best, and that's what I meant before, especially using AI generated phishing attacks, is the phishing resistant authentication methods like Hello for Business, FIDO2 security keys, certificate based authentication, platform credentials for macOS, and now it's generally available, passkey in Microsoft Authenticator, because device bound passkeys in the Authenticator app is the same level of security as with Windows Hello, and it counts to the best to the phishing resistant authentication methods, and it's quite easy to use. Passkeys, Microsoft's report about a user study they have done in 2024, so this year, the success rate of passkeys is 98% successful sign-in rate when using passkeys, so you don't need to use your password anymore. So it's very easy to sign in. We will see this just in some slides. And then 3 times higher sign-in success rate. That's what I just meant than passwords, because you cannot mistype your password anymore because you don't enter a password. So let's go to the first quick demo. It's register a passkey with temporary access pass. So the user using only Authenticator app on the phone clicks to add work or school account, clicks on add account, then sign in an email address. That's now that's from an Ignite demo, this short video. And then not using password, you're using temporary access pass. That counts as a secure login method, so they are allowed to add other MFA factors. Now that's why they can now create the passkey right straight from Authenticator app. You need to go to settings in Android or iPhone to allow Authenticator to use as password manager. You need to use the iPhone passcode, or you can also use Face Unlock. Click on continue again. The passkey is now being created. Another unlock. And it's now created and stored to your Entra ID account. And you can now use it to log in for your Entra ID account. So how does this look like? This is another comparison. They also did this on Ignite passkeys. What I want to show you here is 2 things. First of all, the sign-in experience using passkeys, and this, they also compare it in seconds how fast it will be signing using passkey and compared to signing using password. But they also mistype the password once. Perhaps this is typical behavior, mistyping a password. If you have a complex password and you need to type it on a mobile phone, yes, it's a pain. So probability to mistype it one time could be somewhere, but anyway, it shows you how quick it is. So let's start this one. Just click on sign in. So that's it. Sign in with your passkey, and we enter the passcode to the device on the left side. That's it. We are logged in using passkeys, phishing proof. On the right side, we try to type the password. Oh no, we mistyped the password. We need to type the password again. Here we are, sign in, stay signed in, and now we are in without MFA, just with password. It took us 25 seconds compared to the 8 seconds on the left side. We will see another passkey example. We have seen if you are using a passkey on on a mobile phone and you're signing into your Entra ID account on the mobile phone, then it's quite straightforward. It uses the passkey stored on the Authenticator app on this device, so you don't have to do anything. You don't have to scan a QR code and connect using Bluetooth, because it's all on the same device. So I think it's the most easy experience signing in using a passkey. Let's go to the demo 2. We do now the same on desktop. This account, actually it's my account, uses currently Microsoft Authenticator push notifications using number matching. So I would say it's an account typically found in the field. You are using Authenticator, using push accounts. You have the Authenticator app on a current iPhone. I'm controlling the iPhone using TeamViewer. That's why it's a square and not rounded shapes like an iPhone typically is, but it's a normal iPhone in here, which I control using TeamViewer. So let's do the registration like your users will do it when you enable, if you haven't done yet, if you enable the passkey options for them. So first of all, let's go to this my sign-ins to the security information, or aka.ms/mfa setup, and add a new sign-in methods. We click on add sign-in method. We see now, oh, passkey in authenticator. We click on next. Again on complete setup in authenticator. Click again on next, verifying passkey. It will fail because we didn't do anything on the mobile phone yet. So let's go to the mobile phone. We click on create passkey on the already existing Enter ID account. We need to do another MFA because we want to add a new MFA factor. We use the last one, meaning number matching from authenticator, creating the passkey. Now it creates it to the account. Passkey is created. And now we can click on try again on the right side on the desktop. It verifies the passkey and we are on. We see on the portal here, passkey in authenticator is now added. And we can switch the default sign-in method if we would like to app-based authentication or hardware token. So it will use the authenticator passkey. That's a device-bound phishing-proof passkey by default. So it's quite easy. Clicking on the account, click on create passkey. Once enabled, at the same time go to the the MFA portal for your user account, add a sign-in method for passkeys, and then register this passkey in there. That's it for creating a new passkey. So how does this look like when you try to log into your desktop using a passkey? For this, I use an incognito browser window, so we don't use any stored cookies or whatever from in there. And we have still the same authenticator on the left side. So let's go to office.com, click on sign in. I use my email address, rolf@changecockpit.ch. Now I don't want to enter my password this time because I click on use your face, fingerprint, PIN, or security key. Now it asks me what kind of security key. I click on iPhone, iPad, or Android device, and now I have a QR code to scan. I pick up my phone, go to the Authenticator app, click on scan QR code. It scans the QR code. Now it's connecting using Bluetooth to my desktop or laptop computer, where I try to sign in on the right side. It takes, in this demo, it takes some time, can happen sometimes. It's not that fast or not that quick. Normally it's quite faster connecting using Bluetooth. So it connected using Bluetooth. The desktop device tells me on the left side, I click on yes, I want to sign in with my passkey. Now I'm signed in and I see on the right side, I didn't use any password. I only used QR code scanning. Device connects using Bluetooth to my desktop, then exchanges the passkey, or how it does it using the passkey, and signs in using this one. And I need my device. I need to unlock the device using, in this case, in my case, using biometrics, meaning iPhone using face unlock, scan the QR code, connect to it, click again on the Authenticator app on sign in, and then everything works. So that's the sign-in experience on a desktop. It's not as easy as if you are signing directly on the mobile phone, because you have to exchange some information using the QR code and Bluetooth. So if you restrict Bluetooth in here, a side note, if you lock down Bluetooth, you need to enable it at least for this profile, so your device, your mobile phone, can connect using Bluetooth to your laptop or desktop computer. That's everything documented in the Microsoft Docs. So how to enable passkeys anyway? That's ChangeCockpit slide, like I announced it. I think it was back in the November ChangeCockpit. Speaking about passkeys enablement. It was out in preview. Now it reached general availability, or it's rolling out into GA right now. In preview, you needed to enable the passkeys in Enter ID manually. you still have to do this. It will roll out to all tenants in the second half of January 2025. Then passkeys will be enabled for all users worldwide by default. So if you don't do anything, then your users will be able to use passkeys if you enabled FIDO2 authentication protocol and authentication methods in Entra ID. So organizations that have activated FIDO2 authentications and have not configured key restrictions will be activated for passkeys with Authenticator app by default starting in the mid of January 2025. If you want to do it by yourself, just go into the FIDO2 passkey option in authentication methods. That's here. If you go to authentication methods, into the policies, and then enable passkeys, at least for users where you would like to try out the passkey option. It was, by the way, it was renamed from FIDO2. It was only called FIDO2. It's now passkey and FIDO2 in the name in here. So what MFA options, zooming out a bit now again, we talked about passkeys. What other MFA options anyway do we have in Microsoft 365 for Entra ID? Microsoft categorizes this into phishing resistant, passwordless MFA, multi-factor authentication, and single-factor authentication methods. So they start with phishing resistant multi-factor authentication. This is all this counts to Windows Hello for Business, passkeys, as just mentioned, hardware-bound passkeys from Microsoft Authenticator app, and certificate-based authentication. Then we have the passwordless multi-factor authentication if you want to do phone sign-in using authenticator, Microsoft Authenticator number matching. That's not the same. That's passwordless sign-in and not multi-factor authentication, because you can also do multi-factor authentication using a Microsoft Authenticator push notification after you entered your password. It's basically the same setup. Both is in Authenticator app, but one is passwordless sign-in, where you just skip the password part, so you cannot use it on a phishing site as an example. Then you also have temporary access pass for one-time use and multi-use. We will see this a bit later here in the presentation. So this are your options: password using SMS, using voice, the very old ones, federated multi-factors, and then you also have single-factor authentication, like just entering a password or signing by SMS. This would be possible, but it's not enabled by default. So all these authentication methods can be enabled individually. So before you start, I would suggest to you, before you start with anything doing now with passkeys on your side, first migrate to the converged authentication methods. By default, if you didn't do so, and there's another deep dive about this topic, about this particular topic. By default, your MFA settings and on what methods are allowed for what kind of operations are split between the per user MFA portal and the SSPR configuration portal. And then Microsoft introduced some years ago the authentication methods for newer stuff. And now they are forcing you, or they push you, because the deadline is at the end of September 2025. So 9 months to go until you need to migrate to converged authentication methods, and you have the migration part on the top here. So the easiest way, they introduced 1 month ago, they introduced a wizard where you had to do everything manually till then. So if you didn't do it yet, you're lucky, because you can just go in migration status, click on change, and then use the migration wizard to migrate both portals, per user portal settings, and SSPR, single self-service password recovery portal settings, to this converged authentication methods portal, like you just see this now on the screen. So first of all, before you do anything, I suggest to you, migrate to this converged authentication methods. It's quite easy, and if something goes wrong, you can easily fall back. And as mentioned, there's a deep dive about migrating converged authentication methods. Then you can also use these different authentication methods and these strengths to enforce different MFA strengths inside Entra ID using conditional access policies. So if you decide all your admins need to sign in using phishing resistant MFA, then you could create a conditional access policies targeting all admin roles, not users, admin roles. So it's dynamic. If you have a new admin, it will also target this new admin as soon as, or if a user gets an admin role using privileged identity management, then this user will be targeted by this conditional access policy, or this conditional access policy will apply to this user as soon as this user gets the admin role. So you target the conditional access policy to the specific admin role or roles, and then you have a grant for MFA. You need MFA, and you tick the checkbox for phishing resistant MFA. There's a screenshot later. So using this method, by default, Microsoft has built in Entra ID 3 different authentication strengths out of the box. That's called multi-factor authentication, passwordless MFA, and phishing resistant MFA. And for your reference, you see this on the right side again, but in these categories, in this strengths category, phishing resistant are Windows Hello for Business, passkeys, and certificate-based authentication. And these are, but you could also create your own authentication strengths template, and then you add your desired authentication methods into these strengths and assign these strengths to a certain conditional access policy. Another view of the same thing, the built-in MFA strengths, but using check boxes, which method is by default contained in which category. So phishing resistant, again, FIDO2, Hello for Business, and certificate-based authentication. And if you want to go for only passwordless MFA, then it's authenticated phone sign-in in addition, and then the default authentication strength. But as you see, in the default MFA strengths, SMS sign-in isn't included. But password and something you have is included, meaning password and SMS would be fine for just basic MFA as well. To enforce this, I mentioned it, you can use conditional access policies. You create a new conditional access policies with whatever assignments you prefer, but the configuration for phishing resistance is in the grant controls. So you go to grant, you had till now, or now for a longer time, you have both. Just require MFA, require multi-factor authentication. Instead of ticking require multi-factor authentication, you can use require authentication strengths, and then choose your desired authentication strength level. Like in my example before, you assign or you create a new conditional access policy targeting all admin roles, then you choose phishing resistant MFA in here, and then you can only sign in using phishing resistant MFA if you want to use your admin role. So how does this work? During sign-in, Entra ID now checks the policies, the conditional access policy or the policy to determine the user's access to the resource. So it checks the conditional access policy. Then in the next steps, when Entra ID knows, okay, I need phishing resistance MFA for this user, then it will check which methods are allowed in the authentication methods policy, that's the tenant-wide policy, and which are required by the conditional access policy. So if you don't enable Hello for Business and certificate-based authentication, but you enable passkeys and you require phishing proof authentication, then passkeys is in the combination of tenant policy and the phishing resistant setting, then only passkeys is the only valid option. Then this allowed method must be registered by the user. It must be registered before or as part of the access request. That's also called inline registration. So let's say you target this phishing resistant MFA to your admin, and your admin didn't already register for phishing proof authentication method. Then the next time this admin signs in, then this admin needs to register this example passkeys in the Authenticator app as part of the access request or as part of the authentication flow. That's important to know. You can still do the inline registration. And that you know this for all regular users as well. Now it depends if you restrict adding MFA factors using another conditional access policies to secure this part of authentication. Then the method of a policy, of a particular policy, must be satisfied. So if you have two policies requiring passkey, then the user can use the same FIDO2 passkey authentication token to satisfy both policies. But if two policies require different set of methods, for example, you use one for authentication with number matching and the other one needs FIDO2, then the user must use multiple methods to satisfy both policies. So the method defined in the conditional access policy must be satisfied, and not, oh, I use phishing resistant, so I satisfy any policy. No, if you assign the authentication strength in a policy which doesn't include the other one you already use for another policy, then you must satisfy both methods. Then the authentication strengths for registering security information will be preferred over other policies that target all resources or all cloud apps. That's the former name. So what I'm talking about, if by default you should create a dedicated conditional policy, or I think you should create a dedicated conditional access policy for register security information. As we've mentioned before, MFA can be registered in line. So let's say an attacker phishes a user successfully, and this user was never working outside his normal environment. So this user didn't use any MFA before, so this user didn't have an MFA registered, any MFA registered, because you also didn't do a registration campaign, as an example. Then the first time this user will be forced to use MFA, this user will be at the same time asked to register for MFA. And if you didn't lock this down, then the attacker can now register for this user's MFA and registers the attacker's phone to this account and can get in anyway. The user couldn't because the user doesn't have a valid MFA factor, but the attacker can now sign in. That's why we need to lock down from where or from which devices we can register security information, meaning we can register for MFA credentials, for example, only from compliant devices or from known devices. That would be one possibility. I've seen customers restricting it to just their IP range from, yes, I know that's not according 100% to zero trust, but anyway, they are still lock it down from their company network. Only within your company network, you're allowed to register security information. So for the just mentioned scenario, the attacker would need to be inside your company network and then do a successful phishing of your user, and then this attacker could access or register security information for his phished users. But if this attacker is already in your company network, then yeah, probably game is anyway over. So that just lock down this using the user actions, you do this in a conditional access policy in target resources. You don't use cloud apps in target resources. You select on the top to user actions and then register security information and restrict from where or from which devices you can register MFA credentials. Then, as mentioned, all authentication strengths for registering security is preferred over other policies. So if you have a policy for all cloud apps needing only just regular MFA, but you need phishing-proof MFA to register security information, then this will be preferred if you try to access aka.ms/MFA setup and register another MFA token for you. All other ground controls, like require device to be marked as compliant from other conditional access policy, well, anyway, apply as usual. So not just because you're using phishing resistant MFA doesn't mean you have all other ground controls are just being ignored, just side note. And if multiple conditional access policy target register security information, because I don't know why you did different policies for this, the register security information, then each apply an auth strengths, then the user must satisfy all authentication strengths to sign in and register for the security information. So this will be a combination of all policies targeting register security information. And not all phishing methods can be registered from the interrupt mode. The interrupt mode is the inline mode where you, the first time, if you didn't register already for phishing proof method, the first time this is needed, then you will be asked to register for it. That's called the interrupt mode because your logon will be interrupted by registering a new security token, and not all, meaning certificate-based authentication and Hello for Business cannot be registered from interrupt mode. And you cannot use all auth methods, all authentication methods for all scenarios. Like Hello for Business, yes, you can do both, but you see here the combination for primary authentication and secondary authentication. So not all can, for example, the software OAuth token cannot be used for primary authentication, but you could use it as secondary using a password as primary and MFA and SSPR as secondary authentication. So if this table, that's for your reference, if this table shows SSPR, please do not confuse SSPR, which is self-service password recovery, with the change password option, because SSPR is being used when you forgot, when you don't know your password. Then you need SSPR to reset the password without knowing the existing password. And the change password option in your My Account panel is changing the password, but you know your old password, and then you don't need a special MFA or SSPR registered options because it's a change password functionality and not a reset self-service password recovery or self-service password reset option, just to know. Then you can also manage your particular or your individual users' authentication methods directly from Entra ID portal or from Entra ID admin center. In this example here, I have one account, and this account, all these accounts have then authentication methods. Even for guest accounts, you can see it in here. And in the authentication methods blade, you see the usable authentication methods and the non-usable authentication methods and the system preferred multi-factor authentication method. To this I will come later, system preferred. So the usable here for this user would be the authentication method. This user has registered a Microsoft Authenticator app in his Pixel 8 device, and he also has non-usable authentication method because it's disabled by the authentication methods policy, a software OAuth token. So you could also delete these authentication methods from here, or you could also bootstrap. There are also PowerShell commandlets for this. You could also bootstrap authentication methods. As an example, if you roll out a new user, you could now add the mobile phone number as an authentication method, and if it's allowed using the mobile phone SMS number to do a self-service password recovery, you don't have to tell the users the initial password. The user just goes to office.com, signs in, clicks on the forgot password link, and uses then the email address and SMS sign-in or SMS recovery code to reset its own password. That would be a possibility. This is called bootstrapping authentication method, and you can bootstrap authentication methods now using Graph API, not using UI, currently the FIDO2 keys. This was rolled out, I think, 2 months ago, but using UI, you could bootstrap email addresses for SSPR and SMS, so mobile phone numbers. Another word about temporary access pass. You could also use or bootstrap as a credential a temporary access pass. A temporary access pass is, like the name suggests, it's temporary. You can create a temporary password for these users. This user will or this password will be time limited, or it will be a limited use passcode, meaning you can use it only once. An admin can create a temporary access pass for a user. This access path will be considered as strong authentication method. This means it will satisfy anything you need to go in, except for location policies, to go into and register a new MFA factor. So we have seen this in the first demonstration for the phone sign-in for the passkey. We have seen this in the first demo for passkey, where the user used the temporary access path to log in. So you can bootstrap and recovery of accounts. Let's say user calls you in, I forgot, or I lost my mobile phone is broken. I'm outside. I'm in another country and I need MFA to log in here, and I cannot do anything. So you don't need to disable MFA for this user or use it to an exception group where this user doesn't need MFA to go to the to register for new MFA factors. No, you just assign this user a temporary access pass. Tell this access pass to the user it will be valid by default for 8 hours. Once you configure it, and then the user can use it one time by default and log in and assign another or roll out another phone authenticator app to use as MFA factor. So let's see how this works using a quick demonstration. We see here again the account. We are in enter ID in authentication methods. This user just called in. His phone is broken and this user needs to set up a new phone. So we go in here, click on the top right, or add authentication methods, choose temporary access pass. Yes, it will be valid for 2 hours. It's only for one-time use usable. It will be added now. I see the temporary access pass. I copy this access pass. That's now a password style. I tell this to the user can use it. I can also, if I change my mind, I can also delete this temporary access path from the account again. But I would tell the user now this temporary access path. User can log into AKMS/MFA setup, register the new phone, and everything will be fine. But for this to work, temporary access paths need to be enabled in the authentication methods in Enter ID by default. This is not enabled. Then 2 other things about settings in Enter ID which influences how MFA works. First of all, system preferred MFA. By default in Enter ID, this is in the state is Microsoft Manage, and my last information is about Microsoft Manage equals to it's turned on. So system preferred multi-factor authentication will always use the most secure authentication method when a user needs to do MFA. So the most secure registered authentication method. So let's say I have registered for an SMS, so for a phone number, but I've also registered authenticator app with number matching to MFA. So having this turned on, the system will always ask me for MFA using authenticator app using number matching and not for my SMS token, even if I set up mobile phone SMS as my default or my preferred authentication methods in MFA portal. It will ask me anyway for the authenticator app because it's more secure and system preferred multi-factor authentication is turned on. So this can override the default choice of the users if the users have registered for multiple authentic or MFA factors. That's one important thing to know. You can disable it in here in authentication methods in settings. And if you want to try it out, because you disabled this at some point in time, switch it to on and enable it only for a select group. And if the user only has one method, nothing will change. If the user uses SMS but also has registered an authenticator app, then it will switch this user now to authenticator app instead of SMS. SMS will still be registered and will still be available as a fallback method, but by default it will ask for authenticator app. Then another possibility is the registration campaign or the built-in registration campaign. You can use this, or it's even also turned on by default since a month now or even a year. This will nudge your users to set up the authenticator. So you go also into authentication methods, then click on registration campaign. And this registration campaign prompts users to set up for more secure authentication methods, meaning it will ask the user to configure authenticator by default. You can add or you can edit the methods down here and tell the system what kind of authentication methods you would like to have your users registered, and then you can start a campaign. This was rolled out, as mentioned before, by Microsoft defaulting to on, and then all users who are doing MFA or no during the next logon will be asked using this prompt here, hey, protect your account. For a faster and safer sign-in, your organization requires you to use authenticator. Even so, let's say I'm a user, I only registered for SMS because I don't want to install this authenticator app on my personal mobile phone. And this registration campaign will be turned on. Then I will be asked anyway to register for authenticator. I can by default skip 3 times, but after during the 4th login, I need to, or at the 4th day during the login, I need now to register for authenticator app, even if SMS was fine till now, because my company forced it using the registration campaign. But this is only to level up to authenticator. This is not the same as Entra ID registration campaign from Entra ID P2. You could also do a registration campaign there, when the users will be forced to register for MFA anyway. So these are quite 2 different things in here. Then I mentioned it before, but anyway, to repeat it again, if you want, or a best practice, if you want to have admins to use phishing resistant MFA, then you use a conditional access policies targeted to all cloud apps or all resources and scope it to directory roles, and then use the phishing resistant MFA grant. And Microsoft also has some references, a catalog for more recommended policies like block legacy authentication, require MFA authentication strength for all users, and so on. If you would like to visit the page, the catalog of these recommended policies is here. I just mentioned the require phishing resistant MFA for administrators, and there are how-to guides how to configure this in your environment. Then let's switch to the part of monitoring. You can also monitor the authentication methods used in your tenant. Then you go also to authentication methods. Down there, you up here you have the policies. Down here you have the activity blade. And inside this activity blade, you see all your recent registrations in your tenant. You see the sign-ins by authentication requirement and the sign-ins by authentication method. So in this graphics here, we see user registered by authentication methods, and now we see all different authentication methods which are registered for all my users. I could set filters, I could do drill down, so at least I see what methods are still registered, and if I want to get rid of, let's say, SMS. I need then to get rid of the mobile part. So I need to filter or guide the users how to remove all the mobile parts from their accounts, or I do it using PowerShell as an example, but I need first to force them to register for another option. This as an example, if you would like to get rid of SMS, or you just turn off mobile SMS in authentication methods, and then for the users who still have registered them, it will not be usable anymore. So it will be on the not usable part of the authentication factors on the particular user's accounts, as we have just seen before. This is one possibility. There are built-in authentication methods reports and usage reports. There is also another blade in here about usage. We have registration, we have usage. So you see here you see which methods are registered by your users, and in usage you would see which methods are really used by your users. Then you also see the registration details. If you go to monitoring and then user registration details, we have just been here on the activity part, then you would see a list of all your users and all MFA capabilities these users has registered for. Like this one has registered passkey, software OAuth token, and SSPR capable, yes. Passwordless capability, yes, capable, and multi-factor authentication as well. So Microsoft wrote this digital defense report. Most of the screenshots I used for about the why part in these presentations are according to this digital defense report. And there are also some actions stated according to this report. First of all, adversary in the middle attack, phishing attacks, and token thefts are on the rise. And that's why there are some actions. If you didn't implement this or configure this till now, then Microsoft urges you to do this, like retire passwords in favor of phishing resistant and passwordless authentication methods like passkeys. So use passkeys, use Hello for Business or certificate-based authentication, and retire the passwords for your users. So if you don't know your password, then you don't know what to enter on a phishing form, right? So you can't be phished anymore. Risk-based conditional access, if you have Enter ID Plan 2, then you could use risk-based conditional access, require interactive strong authentication when anomalies are detected. This is another one to go, and prevent access from untrusted environments, and reduce time to mitigation using continuous access evaluation. So prevent access from untrusted environments, that's quite important, because we have even seen that people are being tricked into a browser session where inside this browser session they used some kind of remote control of a Windows client, and in this client the phishing page was presented. So if they log in there, they have a valid login and they use MFA on this computer even, and then the session cookie from this virtual environment can be reused because the user already logged in on this virtual machine. So the phishing page was within this virtual machine and the user tried to log in there. So that's why you need to prevent access from untrusted environments. So you can only log in from your trusted devices. And reduced time to mitigation, continuous access evaluation is now available for a very long time. So if the credentials change, if let's say your IP address changes, if you're using IP address conditional access policies, then it will be very, very quick till the access will be re-evaluated using conditional access policies. Then last but not least, it wouldn't be a ChangeCockpit deep dive if we don't have a roadmap about new features. We have first about Entra Internet Access, one part. We have regarding Secure Web Gateway now in public preview, universal continuous access evaluation for everything. So this means if something changes, if you have continuous access evaluation and risk-based sign-ins, then you would lose. If your risk state changes, you would lose instantly internet access from your client when using Entra Internet Access. This means if something changes, if something is strange about your account, you cannot connect to the internet anymore. So if someone is already on your computer, then this one would lose access to the internet as well. And in private preview, TLS inspection in Entra Internet Access. Then for Entra Private Access, regarding Zero Trust Network Access, we have now available quick access policies. In December or this month, app discovery will follow as well. Then we have in public preview private DNS. This allows you also to use single name label named host names in through private access. So you don't need to use an FQDN if you have very old applications which can only use a host name instead of the fully DNS name. You could use this one, and in public preview connectors in marketplaces. And a big one, now in January, Microsoft will roll out real-time password spray detection in Entra ID. This allows you to identify attacks in real time during sign-in, signals your risk-based conditional access policy. So if someone is doing password spray against a certain account and it proactively protects against one of these most common identity attacks, we have seen it before, password sprays are done very often. That's it for the content part. Now we are on the outro. This means if you would like to have more news, if you would like to see the other deep dives, just get in touch with us. If you would have more information, more news about ChangeCockpit, for those of you who don't know what this is, ChangeCockpit is a monthly live event where we announce all updates which are rolling out in Microsoft 365 in the current and the following month. These are typically around 120 changes which are rolling out in the current and following month. So this is quite a lot. If you want to be on top with your knowledge, on top of what's coming, on top of the changes, then you just visit this around 2-hour session a month and you know everything you need to know. If you would like to see this, if you would like to join this, every customer, every company can join at least once for a free demonstration. Just sign up on changecockpit.cloud, and here you'll see also a selection of our amazing reference customers. Next events, Wednesday, December 18th from 9:30 till 11:30 is ChangeCockpit in Swiss German. And in the afternoon, these are all Central European times. From 3 to 5, it's ChangeCockpit in English. Yes, there are 2 languages currently, Swiss, German, and English version. And then Thursday, January the 9th, next year, we will have another deep dive about No, it's not about MFA and phishing resistance. Sorry for this one. It's actually, it's all about multi-tenant, as we see here. We have done this year now backup and archive deep dive, all around email security, get in the loop, and now this one, MFA and phishing resistance. If you would like to have access to the other ones, please let me know or let us know. And next January is all about multi-tenant, and then in March there will be another deep dive about SharePoint on advanced management. The recording of this event for all ChangeCockpit members will be stored in Teams. Guests, the link will be to the recording will be sent to you. And here are also to mention some other resources like the blog post of my MVP colleague who is in the live session. The Swiss German version will be held live. He's the moderator in there. That's it. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us. Feel free to ask, even through Teams chat, email. See the address on the lower right here, or just through LinkedIn. You have the QR codes in here. So thank you for watching till here. I hope you learned something, and see you in your ChangeCockpit or the next deep dive. Wish you a great remainder of the week. Thanks and goodbye.